Welcome back, guys. I am starting the second part of chapter 16, that is spatial senses, part 2. Let's start with the chapter objectives. So today, basically, we're going to cover everything about the ear of the spatial senses. So ear is the sensory organ for hearing as well as for balance. So there are two main structure in the body which balance your body. So that is called proprioception, and that is the function of cerebellum as well as the inner ear. Okay, so the ear, uh, about the ear, the chapter objective is as follows. We're going to talk about basic structure of the external and middle ear, basic function of the external and middle ear, parts of bony and membranous labyrinth in the inner ear. So inner ear structure is the maze-like structure inside our temporal bone. And this structure is like tube within a tube. So outer tube is like bony tube, and then fitting inside the bony tube is another the membranous tube. So we're going to talk about parts of the outer tube bony labyrinth and inner tube membranous labyrinth in the inner ear. As any other sensory organ, your ear also has receptors in the membranous labyrinth inside. And those receptors are for hearing and equilibrium, which is also called balance. We're going to talk about the structure and function of those receptors inside the membranous labyrinth. Then, like visual pathway, we will talk about auditory pathway from your external ear up to the temporal lobe of your cerebral cortex. And then we'll talk about some clinical application. Okay. So here, let's start with one of the clinical application. John, 18 years old, active male patient. It is active male patient. Comes to the emergency room with severe pain in the right ear. Further, patient history reveals that John had gone for swimming 2 days ago in a community pool. So this is a young guy going to swimming pool, and swimming pool is community swimming pool. Okay. On examination, when doctor examines him, his physician finds pain and tenderness on movement of his external ear. So when you don't move the external ear, there is no pain. But when physician moves the external ear, there is pain. So based on these swimming pool history, then pain in the ear, and then pain aggravates on movement, which is called tenderness. So based on this information, what is the diagnosis and pathophysiology of this condition? So this question is asking, where do you think the infection is, if there is? Is it in the external ear or middle ear or inner ear? Okay. Keep in mind, this looks like the infection of either external ear or middle ear. So we're going to see how it goes. Okay. Okay. So the ear is the organ of hearing and equilibrium. The ear, receptor organ for hearing in equilibrium or balance. And ear has three main regions: outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear. Outer ear function is absolutely hearing. Similarly, middle ear has absolute function of hearing. But when inner ear comes, it has dual function. It works for hearing along with outer and middle ear, as well as inner ear only separately also perform the duty of equilibrium. Okay. So middle, outer, and inner ear is responsible for hearing, whereas only inner ear is responsible for balance. So here is the diagram of ear, and you can see the structure of the ear. So as I said, ear can be divided into three parts, three regions. Only external ear part you can see. Middle and inner ear are the inner cavity inside your temporal bone, so you cannot see them. Okay, so if you see here, external ear here, it's all the structure. So external ear is, you have the helix, the outer rim of the ear. Then you have the cavity here, that is called this one, auricle or pinna. And this lobe, which is the skin hanging downward with a lot of fat, that is called lobule. And then this funnel, half funnel shaped ear, channelize air through the cavity in the temporal bone. And this cavity is called external acoustic meatus. Okay. Then external acoustic meatus up to here, this is all external ear. Now there is a boundary of the external and middle ear cavity that is called tympanic membrane, or we call it eardrum. Okay. After the eardrum, there is the cavity in the temporal, temporal bone. So roof of the temporal bone is the roof of the middle ear cavity, which is also called tympanic cavity sometimes. Okay, it's tympanic membrane, and this cavity is called tympanic cavity. So roof is formed by the temporal bone. The lateral wall is formed by the tympanic membrane, and the medial wall is formed by the bony wall of the labyrinth or inner ear. Okay, so this is the inner wall. The floor is formed by the temporal bone as well as the tubular structure, which is called pharyngotympanic tube or auditory tube, which is lined by mucous membrane and the connective tissue, and it opens into the nasopharynx. Okay, so this whole thing is middle ear cavity. Middle ear cavity has several smallest bone in the body. From lateral to medial, it is malleus, incus, and this stirrup-like structure, which is, stirrup means the structure when we ride horse, you put your leg, that is a stirrup. Okay, so here a stirrup has food process. Food process is attached to a membrane called oval window hair, which is the part of inner ear. Okay, and these bones are attached to like several muscles, stapedius muscle, stapes, tensor muscles. There are several muscles which bone join them and attach them to the wall. Okay, so this is middle ear cavity. Then inner ear or internal ear, this is like a maze. That's why we call them labyrinth. The literal meaning of word labyrinth. Labyrinth is like maze, like structures. Okay, tortoise structure. So inner ear, you see, inner ear, as I told you earlier, inner ear has the outer bony tube, and this outer bony tube is part of the temporal bone. It is not like separate bone. It is a cavity in the temporal bone. So this is the wall of temporal bone. And inner structure has the bony inner ear, bony part, bony labyrinth, bony internal ear. And then inside the bony there is membranous internal ear, which we cannot see in this diagram. Inner ear, the bony labyrinth has three parts. Okay, this is called cochlea of the bony labyrinth. This is called, this middle part is called vestibule of the bony labyrinth, and these three half canals are called semicircular canals of the bony labyrinth. Okay, inside this bony labyrinth of cochlea, there is cochlear duct. Inside this semicircular canal of the bony labyrinth, there is semicircular ducts, which is membranous labyrinth. Inside this vestibule, there is two structure of membranous labyrinth that is called utricle and saccule. Okay, So this is all about the gross structure of the ear in three parts: external, middle, and inner ear. Okay. External ear has skin, and this external acoustic meatus is also lined by the same keratinized squamous, stratified squamous epithelium, same whale glands, sebaceous glands, sweat glands, everything is same. So these whale glands sometimes makes a lot of sebum, and then dirt goes there, and that forms the wax here. In real life, this external acoustic meatus is not straightforward, not like a straight here, like this one. Okay. So this is the gross structure of the ear. Outer ear composed of auricle, pinna helps. So what is the function of pinna? It helps direct sounds. External acoustic meatus lined with the skin contains hair, sebaceous gland, and ceruminous glands. Ceruminous glands are the glands which produce these ceruminous glands and sebaceous glands. These ceruminous glands produce cerumen, that is called the wax. And then tympanic membrane is the part of external ear. This is the boundary basically. Sometimes people put in middle ear cavity the name of tympanic membrane. So this forms the boundary between the external and the middle ear. It is shaped like a flattened cone. So this like the channelize the sound wave to the middle ear cavity. Okay. Middle ear or tympanic cavity. Tympanic cavity has a small air-filled space located within the petrous portion of temporal bone, contains three tiny ossicles. Those three ossicles are malleus, incus, and stapes from outside in. Medial wall is penetrated by oval window where foot process of stapes attached, and then round window is another lateral window on the medial wall of inner ear. Pharyngotympanic tube or auditory tube or Eustachian tube, there's three names, opens into this middle ear cavity, and that lifts the middle ear to the nasopharynx. That's why this cavity sometimes, pharyngotympanic tube, get inflamed, and when you have like sore throat or pharyngitis, that inflammation easily is spread to your middle ear cavity through this tube, and then tube is swollen, mucus is plugging, and your middle ear cavity like feels like full, and sometimes you feel like nasal voice, pain in the middle ear, and when you blow your nose, you can open this pharyngotympanic tube blockage. Okay, so same thing here. This is the oval window on the lateral wall of inner ear, and this is the round window. So what is this two window? Let me tell you certain things. So this is, you need to pay attention to understand the inner ear structure, because most of the book does not explain a very right way. Here in the middle ear cavity, you can see in the entrance to mastoid antrum in the epitympanic recess. So you see there is cavity hole-like structure. This is the area where there is a mastoid process and hair cells. And in this area, if you have infection of the middle ear cavity, which is called otitis media, okay? But if you have infection in the external ear, which in our clinical case was, the guy was in swimming pool, and that swimming pool infected his external ear acoustic meatus. And that's why he has like exactly like furuncles or cellulitis infection of the skin. And he was suffering from pain in the ear. And when doctors start moving his ear, then pain increase. If you have pain, inflammation in the middle ear cavity, and if your doctor moves your ear, you will not increase the pain, because this is nothing to do with the external ear, okay? So if somebody has middle ear cavity infection, which is called otitis media, so our patient was suffering from otitis externa. Otitis externa. Okay. Middle ear cavity infection is called Middle ear infection is called otitis media. And inner ear infection is called labyrinthitis, because another name for inner ear is labyrinth. Labyrinthitis. Okay. So our patient was suffering from external otitis externa, and particularly it was from community pool. So in community pool, there is a kind of bacteria called Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa can survive even in bleach. Okay, so if somebody has Pseudomonas aeruginosa and they are swimming in the common pool, it will easily spread from that swimming pool water to others. And that's why if you have immunocompromised or something else, you will get this external otitis media. And if it's by Pseudomonas aeruginosa, then that is called otitis externa, malignant otitis externa. And our patient was suffering from that kind, malignant otitis externa. Okay. So if somebody has middle ear infection, that infection can easily spread from here and eat up the brain, and then can easily spread to the meninges in the brain and can cause meningitis. That's why most common complication of middle ear infection is the meningitis. Okay, so if you see from the medial side how it looks, tympanic membrane, you see here. So you have malleus, incus, stapes. Okay, so as I told you earlier, inner ear or internal ear, inner ear is also called labyrinth, lies within the petrous portion of the temporal bone. So you see, this is the cavity in the temporal bone. So bony part, the wall of bony labyrinth, bony tube, is formed by the wall of temporal bone. Bony labyrinth is a tortuous and irregular cavity consisting of three parts. As I told you earlier, cochlea, vestibule, and semicircular canal. Cochlea is responsible for hearing, vestibular is responsible for equilibrium of balance, and semicircular canal is also responsible for equilibrium and balance. So this is parts of the bony labyrinth. So bony labyrinth has three parts: semicircular canal, vestibule, and cochlea. Let's see what is the part. So this is the bony labyrinth again: cochlea, vestibule, and semicircular canals. And you see vestibular and cochlear nerve exit from vestibule and cochlea, and then they bundle one and becomes vestibulocochlear nerve, which is a cranial nerve. Which cranial nerve? Eighth cranial nerve. Okay. Okay. Now, inside the bony labyrinth, in the inner ear, you have membranous labyrinth. So you have outer tube, which is bony labyrinth, bony tube, and then inside the bony tube, you have membranous labyrinth. Bony tube contains a fluid. That fluid is called perilymph. And inside the perilymph, now you have membranous labyrinth. And inside the membranous labyrinth, there are several structures of the membranous labyrinth. And inside membranous labyrinth, we also contain another fluid that is called endolymph. Okay. So membranous labyrinth is series of membrane wall sacs and ducts. Okay. So, and this fit within the bony labyrinth consists of three main parts. The membranous labyrinth, which is in the cochlea, is called cochlear duct. And the membranous labyrinth, which is in the vestibule, are two, and they are called utricle and saccule. And the membranous labyrinth in the semicircular canal is called semicircular ducts. Okay, so consist of three main parts of the membranous labyrinth, and they are corresponding with the bony labyrinth. So cochlear duct fit into the cochlea, utricle and saccule fit into vestibule, and semicircular duct fit into semicircular canal. Okay, membranous labyrinth filled with a clear fluid called endolymph, what is bony labyrinth filled with? Perilymph. And this endolymph is confined to the membranous labyrinth. Bony labyrinth is filled with perilymph, and that is continuous with the cerebrospinal fluid. So do you remember cerebrospinal fluid we have in subarachnoid space? So it's cerebrospinal fluid and the perilymph in the bony labyrinth are continuous through the endolymphatic duct, okay, in the ear. And that duct is very complex, so you don't need to worry how they connect to each other. Okay, so let's see now membranous labyrinth. So here you go. Here we have the membranous labyrinth here. So bony labyrinth we have removed. See, this is the inner ear, and bony membrane we have removed. So what do you here? See the outer wall, bony labyrinth, and then this green one is the perilymph, the membranous labyrinth, okay, in every area. So this is cochlear duct part of the cochlear duct in the cochlea, cochlear duct part of the membranous labyrinth. These two birds here, the saccule vestibule and atricle and vestibule, these two are together called vestibule. And these three canals, two vertical half canals, semicircular canals, semicircular ducts here. So this is anterior, posterior, and lateral horizontal. So these are vertical, and this is lateral is horizontal. So you see all the membranous labyrinth. Membranous labyrinth, if we cut membranous labyrinth here or here, inside the membranous labyrinth we have a fluid called endolymph, and inside the lymph there is receptors. Okay, so receptors organ in the cochlea is called spiral organ of Corti. Receptor organ in the vestibule lying in the saccule and atricle is called macula, and vestibular the receptor organ in the semicircular canal is crista ampullaris in the membranous ampulla. So this dilated part of the semicircular canal is called ampulla, and in the ampulla you have receptors, and the receptor is called crista ampullaris in the membranous ampullae. Okay, so this is the structure. Now you see here from this spiral, we're going to see histology of this structure later, how they look like. So this spiral organ of Corti contains receptor, and those receptors are attached to the dendrites of the some nucleus, some neurons. So then when sound wave comes here, the spiral organ Corti depolarize their receptors, the hair cell receptor that produce action potential, and then it passes through the cochlear nerve. Similarly, when you move your body, what kind of movement you have, we're going to see different kind of movement. Moves the hair cells and receptor in different organs here. So when the fluid moves, when you move your head, you move the fluid, that moves the receptor, and once it moves the receptor, that depolarize and make action potential, which passes through the dendrites and then to the neuron, and then it takes to the vestibular nerve, and then vestibular nerve and this cochlear nerve together combine and becomes vestibular cochlear nerve. Okay, and you know this is the hair stapes in the oval window, so that when your tympanic membrane moves, they move the stapes, and then it moves the fluid inside, and it moves everything. Okay, it moves the fluid here, and when you move your head, then it moves the fluid here. So here Bony labyrinth, 3 parts, and inside the bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth, 3 parts, and bony labyrinth is filled with perilymph. Membranous labyrinth is filled with endolymph. Inside the endolymph, there are receptors in the cochlea. Receptor is called spiral organ of Corti, and in the vestibule, it is called macula. In the semicircular canal, it is called semicircular duct. It is called crista ampullaris. Okay. So I'm going to go and show you cochlea. Let's go back and check one thing. Okay. So this is the inner ear. Okay. This is vestibule here. These are semicircular canal, and this is cochlea. The cochlea was coiled here, but we have uncoiled cochlea here. As I told you earlier, this is the lateral wall of the inner ear cavity. So stapes foot process is attached to the oval window. And this is the cochlea. This is the bony labyrinth of the cochlea here. And this bony labyrinth is filled with fluid that is called perilymph. You see, perilymph. And inside the bony labyrinth, you see this tube, blind tube. This tube is called membranous labyrinth. And inside the membranous labyrinth, you have cochlear duct. Okay. And this is called helicotrauma, the end of the cochlea. In real life, the cochlea is coiled 3.5 times. But this diagram is very, very important. Let's understand first the term. So if I cut here, the cavity in the bony labyrinth, which is continuous with the oval window, this is called scala vestibuli. And then when it comes to the helicotrauma, the end of the cochlea, the cavity in this, the bony labyrinth, this is called scala tympani. Both scala vestibuli and scala tympani are the cavity in the bony labyrinth. So the both of them contain same thing, same fluid, and that is perilymph. Okay. In the membranous labyrinth, inside you have receptor for hearing, and that duct inside is called cochlear duct. This is the membranous labyrinth, that is cochlear duct. Okay. Inside the cochlear duct, you have another fluid, and that is called endolymph. And inside, if we cut and see under microscope, you're going to see a lot of receptors. Okay. And those receptors are lying on the membrane, the lower membrane. And this membrane is called basilar membrane. Okay. So how we hear when you hear the sound. So let's see, when I say hello, then that hello sound from my mic, it goes to your ear, and then your ear collect the sound wave, channelized through your external acoustic meatus, moves the tympanic membrane, and then tympanic membrane moves all the bones, ossicles, then ultimately the foot process. And that moves the fluid here in the scala vestibule. This fluid creates the wave, and then this wave comes back, and then it vanishes in the middle ear cavity through the round window. So when you create a fluid, then what happens? It also creates fluid, the wave in the fluid inside the cochlear duct. And inside the cochlear duct, you have hair cells, which are receptor for the hearing. That takes impulse from there through the cochlear nerve to your temporal bone, and you hear the sound. That's how you hear it. Okay. So this is the cochlea. So let's say if I cut here, how many cavity I can see if I see from the right side here? So there will be one cavity here, there will be one cavity in the cochlear duct, and there will be another cavity here. So this cavity is called scala vestibuli. This cavity is called here scala tympani, and the cavity here inside will be scala media. Okay, so this is the structure. I'm going to go back and talk about it. Okay. Okay, so here is the cochlea. You can see, if I give, let's see, let me draw it. So if I draw, if I cut, okay. So if I take it and I cut here through this tube in the middle, so let's cut through the center. If I cut through the center of this duct, and if I take here, the one area here, and see, or we take one area here and see, or we take another area and see, what are we going to see? Everywhere we're going to see space between the bony labyrinth, membranous labyrinth, and in the membranous labyrinth, and then membranous labyrinth and bony labyrinth again. So cavity here between the bony and membranous is scala vestibuli, because that is continuous with the oval window. And then cavity in the membranous labyrinth will be scala media. And the cavity between the inferior cavity between the membranous labyrinth and the bony labyrinth is called scala tympani. So let's see, cut it and then see other in the other slide. Let me erase it and then I will go there. Okay. So if I cut here, there is oval window and I'm cutting. So you can see cut section in every. So there is one cut section of the cochlea, another cut section, another cut section, another cut section, another cut section. Okay. If we take any of them, let's see, we are taking this one. Okay, cut section. So this is the bony labyrinth here. And here is membranous labyrinth. So bony labyrinth, proximal bony labyrinth, the space between the bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth here is scala vestibuli. And then in the membranous labyrinth, it is scala media, and this is scala tympani. Okay, as I told you earlier, all the spiral organ of Corti, which is the receptor for hearing, are lying in the cochlear duct, which is called scala media. In the cochlear duct, you have a membrane, this membrane, and that membrane is called basilar membrane. In the basilar membrane, on the basilar membrane, you have the receptor cells. You see, those are the receptors, and receptor is covered by a tongue-like structure membrane that is called tectorial membrane. Okay. So if you magnify here, and let's see this spiral organ of Corti, you magnify it and see how it looks like. So you have the basilar membrane, then you have spiral organ of Corti, and you have hair cells. These receptors have their plasma membrane extended, and these are called hairs or stereocilia. Okay, their outer cell, there is inner cell, and then this is the tectorial membrane lying over. Okay, so when fluid moves in this and this, then it moves the membrane. When membrane moves, they moves these hair cells, and you see these receptor hair cells are synapsing with the dendrites. Okay, and then dendrites, fibers of cochlear nerve, takes impulse to through the cochlear nerve to your brain. Okay, so this is the cochlea and its structure. We talked about it. I think we talked about these all. Okay, we talked about this one too. So we talked about cochlea. Let's talk about vestibule now then. So the second part of the labyrinth is vestibule. A vestibule is the bony labyrinth, and inside the vestibule you have two parts of the membranous labyrinth, and they are saccule and utricle. Okay, so this is the central part of the bony labyrinth, lies medial to the middle ear. Utricle and saccule suspend in perilymph. Two egg-shaped parts of the membranous labyrinth house macula spot for sensory epithelium. Macula contains receptor cells, monitor the position of the head. When head is still, contains columnar supporting cells. The receptor cells are called hair cells because they have their plasma membrane, a lot of stereocilia. Synaptus vestibular membrane. So let's see here. Here, this is the vestibule of the bony labyrinth, and here is two membranous labyrinth part. This is saccule and this is utricle. And in the saccule and utricle, you have receptor hair cells. That is called macula. You see? These two are responsible for horizontal or static balance. Like when you are running and when you deaccelerate, this is the organ feels the balance of your body. When you are climbing and then you fall down, this is the organ. When you nod your head, this is the organ which maintain your balance. But when you say no and move your head angularly, then that is angular movement. That is the, so static balance is by utricle and saccule, and the angular movement is by semicircular canals. Okay, so if you open the saccule or utricle, and when you open the, let me see, we don't have a diagram for. Okay, so here, this is the semicircular canal. This is the ampulla of each semicircular canal. Let's take one ampulla. This is the membranous labyrinth you see here. Inside the membranous labyrinth, you have the crista ampullaris. In the crista ampullaris, you have all the, this whole structure is crista ampullaris. In the crista ampullaris, we have hair cells. You see, these are the hair cells. And these hair cells are suspended in cupula. Cupula are like calcium carbonate, jelly-like fluid, which is holding them. And this is filled with endolymph. So when you move your head, fluid moves here, and that moves this jelly, and that moves here, and that depolarize these fibers of the vestibular nerve, and it takes the impulse to your head. That's how you feel the balance. Okay. So this is all for your ear. Thank you, guys. I think I will post one more lecture on autonomic nervous system, but there will not be any lab on that part. So lab, I have already posted all of them.